Hi, Stephen here for the Idiot Quilter, and here's another interview in my series of interviews with subscribers. Enjoy!
Got it.
Okay, so this week on the Idiot Quilter Presents, I have a special guest. Her name is Sheryl Hogan. And we're going to find out all about you, Sheryl. So tell me, to start off with, where in general do you live?
I live south of Canada, outside of Detroit, in a eastern suburb of Detroit. So
Okay.
you're Lake St. Clair, and
Okay,
not
so
far from Windsor.
You're very close then to our border. Okay, so let's get right into it. How long have you been? Well, first of all, do you quilt or do you sew or do you do both?
Yes, everything.
Everything. Okay, great. So my question then is, how long have you been doing all of this?
My first memories of sewing was my babysitter teaching me how to sew and make clothes for Barbie dolls, which were, vintage. Now they're vintage. Like I got them the first year they came out.
Right.
So I was probably 7. I remember sitting on the porch. I'd rather sit and do embroidery or sew than be out playing baseball with my friends.
So you've been doing it for a long time. What about quilting then? When did you get into quilting?
I started out my career as a dressmaker. In high school, I was sewing and it all all of a sudden clicked and it made sense. We don't talk about the projects I did before that. And then I went to college and switched my major from biochem to clothes design and textiles, and that's what my degree's in. So I've been sewing for a long time, and I was a custom dressmaker for 20 years. Had to do a career change, sell my soul for health insurance, and then I started quilting about 1995.
Okay, so you've been doing that for quite a while too. And so
Yes.
you remember the quilting days when you got started and when you were probably, was there a rotary cutter at that point in time?
Uh, yes, I looked at the stuff that people did quilting. My aunt was a quilter. She used to teach. She lived in Champaign, Illinois, University of Illinois, and my uncle was a professor there. So she would teach the women from Japan and Korea to do quilting as something to do. And it was all, I kept her stuff, the cardboard templates, scissor, with the rulers, no rotary cutters, that kind of
Right.
thing. And I looked at that and went, nah, that's like not my cup of tea. So I did, when I dabbled, it was more art quilting stuff, what I call playing with fabric.
Yeah, well, that's really what we do as quilters too. And for that extent, anybody who does any kind of sewing, I think we're playing with fabrics. One of
Collecting
the
and playing.
appeals. Yeah, exactly. So basically we've kind of talked about how you got started, because you started at 7 making Barbie clothes and things like that. So did anyone in your family influence you?
Well, like I said, in high school, I started really getting into garment sewing. And that's when I realized that my aunt was a trained tailor and dressmaker, trained in Sicily, came here to this country and literally hung a shingle outside her house, and that's how she made her money, on her treadle machine. By the time I was old enough to realize that that's what she did, she had stopped sewing. She had given it up. She only made her daughter's wedding dress. So that would say, I didn't realize that my dad always took his stuff to be altered to her, and she did it. So when I started sewing and doing dress, wanting to go to college for it, I had a full scholarship, and my dad looked at me and said, why do you need to go to college for that? You don't have to go to college. I'm like, well, maybe because I didn't have I wasn't going to waste my scholarship. Plus, I had no idea that my aunt could have shown me how to cut patterns and do whatever, cut work on a treadle machine, things like that. But one day she came over and she looked at what I did and she said, oh, that's very nice. And I said, thank you. I made a jacket. She said, did you base that collar on? And I said, no, I pinned it. She said, well, I'll come back tomorrow. We'll take it all apart and baste it. I'm like, that's when I decided I didn't need her help.
Oh.
But I come from an artistic family, so I'm lucky.
So that would help. Yeah. So my next question then is, what's your favorite creation, whether it be a garment or whether it be a quilt? And I'm that that you've made that really stands out. But I'm distracted right now by two things in the background that I see. Can you tell me a little bit about
Quilt.
those? Yes.
The quilt, this quilt over here is called Empty Nest Syndrome. It was a pattern, and I made it for a quilt competition. We used to have a group in Michigan called the Michigan Quilt Network, and we had a big show. We took turns around the state every year. I entered that one in and won Best of Show, or Viewer's Choice. Mary Ann Fonz was the one of the judges that year.
Oh, geez, yes.
She wanted to put it in her book till she found out that I had to admit it was a pattern. I didn't create it.
Oh.
The other quilt is my quilt guild. One of my guilds that I belong to does a challenge, a group challenge every year for the American Quilters Society AQS shows. We have one here in Michigan. We're lucky enough to normally have one in Michigan, and we enter as a group. They issue a theme, and then everybody makes a quilt that wants to participate, and all the members vote, and the top 8 quilt vote getters get to submit to the show for competition.
Oh.
And twice my quilts have made it in. One we actually won an honorable mention, and the other one I just got in the show, which was awesome. So this was the first one I did, and the theme was, I think it was Detroit. It was My Detroit was the theme. So the center of it's actually a painted and quilted sewer cover.
Oh,
water sewer cover. And then the rest are all the pictures of the theaters that have all gone out of business from my childhood that no longer exist in the city. So
that's really interesting and also very unusual as well. So yeah, I could see why it got into the show like that. Yeah, so that's your creativity. So do you have a favorite creation?
It would be anything that I actually finish would be my favorite. Like that aviatrix quilt, I had it basted. Now it's staring at me trying to figure out how to quilt it. But other than that, I don't have a lot of things to show for my work because as a dressmaker, it all went to somebody else.
Right.
You have like my daughter's wedding dress that I made.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
I don't have that either, but pictures.
Oh, wow.
See them. But that was the last wedding dress I started from scratch. I'm really good at taking dresses apart and remaking them for people. Making mom's dress fit that's this much too small, that kind of thing. Cutting up wedding dresses and making christening outfits and communion dresses, that kind of thing I like to do still. I like to take things apart and put them back together.
In a new way, though. So that's the creativity part of it all, too, really.
Yeah.
So what type of quilter or sewist would you describe yourself as? Are you more traditional or modern or experimental, or?
I would say more modern to experimental. I like to learn to do things. I'm a great one for taking classes.
Oh, okay.
And buying toys. That's why I like to watch you on your shows, because I pretty much have everything that you've reviewed except for the long arm. I don't have a room big enough, but I logged into your channel because I had the Elna version of your Janome 15,000.
Oh, so, yeah.
And there's even less support out there for the Elna version than there is for the Janome, but it's the exact same machine without the Wi-Fi capability.
Yeah, well, I believe Janome actually makes Elna now.
Yes, they do. They do.
With it too. But I'm in it for the machines, as you well know too. I just love the machines. So
well, I have lots of machines, and I get attached to all of them, so I don't get rid of them. I tend to not get rid of them.
So I see 2 of them behind you right now, or 3 of them actually. So you want to tell us about them? Like which models are they? Or
I have the Elna Expressive 920. Expressive 920. Like I said, it's like the 15,000. Has all the big hoops and things like that, and it sews like a dream. And then behind me are 2 of my sergers, 2 of my 4 sergers that I have right now. I like to not have to change thread colors. So
Ah,
I do a lot of alterations.
right,
As I said, I like to take things apart and put them back together. So alterations are the easiest money on earth if you like doing the job.
right.
So I have usually one threaded with white, beige, gray, and black. And I use it for hem finishings and things like
Hmm.
that.
So
So
that's an interesting idea. Rather than switching out your colors of threads, just switch out the machine. I know the sergers
I
are a bit of a pain in the butt to thread. I mean, mine is an air thread, and so that makes life a lot easier. But I did have one that was about a 30, 40-year-old serger, and you had to do it by hand. And it took me the first time I ever did, it took me probably 2 hours to thread the stupid thing and a lot of cursing. But
so are the air threaders real? Do they work every time?
pretty much, yep.
Yeah.
Now, I am not a heavy duty user of a serger like you would be
Okay.
with it. In fact, I hardly ever use my serger. I only got it because it was a good price and I want to make napkins. So
Ah,
so I thought that's why I got it. But Walter uses his quite a bit now. He has an Elna
mhm.
one, which is actually I think it's the same one as the air thread. Just it's got Elna's name. Like I said, they're made by Janome, so they're pretty much
Right.
the same machines. But he uses his quite a bit, but then he's a garment sewer. So, it with quilting, you don't use a serger very often, if at all,
Hmm.
with that.
Does he swear a lot when it comes to changing threads? It's
Oh
what
yeah. Oh yeah.
really.
Oh yeah. That goes with it. I think that goes with a serger. You have to cuss to get it threaded. I mean, it's just a prerequisite, I think. Anybody who tells you, oh yeah, threading their serger is a breeze, they're lying. They are
Yeah.
lying.
Well, then I
Okay.
might as well keep it the way I have it. It's faster just to plug in a machine when I need it.
Yeah, yeah, really. So that takes me to describe your sewing area. I'm assuming you're sitting in it right now.
I'm sitting in my sewing area. We have a 1950s ranch house that was added on up above. So we have 5 bedrooms. We had 2 kids. They're old, they're gone. The first floor, I sewed in the basement for 20 years. And then
Mm.
my husband decided he wanted to make it a man cave. So I have a conference table downstairs that I brought home from work one day because they were going to throw it out. And I have a big spot when I need it, but the rest is his area. And I don't like to even go down there, really. Um, the biggest bedroom, it's like 10 by 12, the room I'm in right now, is my sewing room. And one day I got the brilliant idea that I was surrounded by so much crap that I couldn't get my work done. So I took everything out of both of my kids' bedrooms. And thanks to COVID last year and making masks, I collected some money. And my son's bedroom is all IKEA, the cubbies like we have here, the calyx.
Right?
Boy, those things hold a lot of stuff.
Yeah, they do.
And the shelf above, I can stack machines up there. And so that's my fitting room when I need fitting stuff or when I have to put the baby in his pack and play to go to sleep, my youngest grandson. My daughter's room, I put those heavy duty restaurant shelving units,
Mm.
and I've got 3 of them in there. And I have 2 old Vogue pattern cabinets. I don't know if you remember in a fabric store, they'd have those old big metal
Yes.
cabinets for Vogue
Yep.
patterns.
Hmm.
I have 2 of those filled with fabric. And the room's full. So that's where my mess is. But my sewing room stays as clutter free as it can get. So,
Yeah, yeah, I know about the clutter idea. Just having
mhm.
recently collapsed my sewing dungeon, as I called it, and into my new sewing area. And yeah, I try to keep it neat because it piles up pretty quick, doesn't it? When you're
It
working on
does.
something. And
It broke my
then,
heart to see all the stuff you were giving away, and I
yeah,
couldn't come there and shop.
I know, but it all went to good homes, and I was happy about that. So my next question to you then is, what's your favorite tool and or technique?
My favorite tool is actually would be my sewing machine, but my other favorite tool is my laptop's on right now. I'm a retired school secretary, middle school. So I love it when you make your comments about the kids and the
Yeah.
everything. I just crack up. But in my office, I had this table. It was a computer table, so it doesn't have four legs. I can slide in under it. It's square. I wish it was bigger, but it cranks up and down and it
Oh,
rolls.
oh, nice.
So I can put it next to my other tables when I have when I need a bigger space. I can do it low or high, and that's my favorite tool. I would be lost without my table.
Yeah, that sounds like a great one. I've looked at those ones that you can buy that are electric, that go up and go down and stuff like that. They're an astronomical price. But I don't know if I really want one or not, because I've heard there's problems with those. But what you've got sounds ideal, because you don't have to worry about electricity, and it rolls. And as you said, it makes it very versatile. So you can, when you need the space, you can have it there. When you don't need the space, you can put it somewhere else.
And it's about 40 inches square, so it's not a
That's a good
shallow
size.
table.
Yeah, that's a good size.
The biggest thing I have, setback I have with having buying an embroidery machine like a Janome or an Elna, as you know, the hoop's in the back.
Yeah,
So it makes it really difficult to find a spot to put your machine
yeah,
and
that's
be
true.
able to do embroidery. So
Yeah.
my machine sits on a $30 table I got at IKEA, and that's its spot. But this table that I actually sit and watch you and do, I can put it right in front of the TV. I can hang out on YouTube, and
Yeah.
that's what I do when I'm working. I can't work in a quiet spot. I have to have noise going.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I can work in anything, but that was from my years of teaching school. You learn how to have selective hearing and
tune it
tuning
out.
out. Yeah, tune
Yes.
out all the time. Okay, so if you had all the money in the world, then do you have a piece of equipment you'd like to invest in?
Knowing that I'll never have room for a long arm, it would be to invest in actual sewing cabinetry
Mm,
to fit my room. I would love to be able to lower and lift my sewing machine and have a big flat surface where the machine was in there and it could be in the spot I want it to be.
yeah,
That's my
I've looked at those
fantasy.
too. They're an astronomical price as well, like anything that's associated with sewing, but that would be just ideal.
Like
That
the
would
Martelli tables. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's the ones I had thinking about in my mind with
Yeah.
that. So, but yeah, I have looked into them. But yeah, the price is just, for many reasons, it's just too much for that. And this is coming from a person who just bought a long arm. Yeah. Okay, we'll move on from that. So I think you mentioned that you belong to or have belonged to some groups. So are these guilds, or what are they, and what's the experience like with those?
I actually made a list so I could count how many groups I belong to. And I belong to 7 different groups,
Wow.
plus the AQS. I go to their show whenever they have them. But my favorite ones, I guess the general thing I get out of all of them, unlike what you went through,
Yeah.
all of my friends are in these groups now.
Ah,
And I have one friend, when I officially retired in 2015, she said, "Oh, I'm going to hook you up. You can come to meetings with me now." So now I belong to a group called the Needlework and Textile Guild of Michigan, Greater Detroit, Quilt Guild of Metro Detroit, Creative Clothing Club, which is sewing, but sewing morphs into anything. I have a design group. There's 5 of us that meet, and we issue a challenge, and it can be anything from crafting to paper to painting, embroidery, sewing, whatever. And American Sewing Guild, I belong to that group too. And the Greater Ann Arbor Quilt Guild, the one that issued that Sew Along for the Aviatrix quilt.
yeah.
I joined that one because my friends belong in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's where University of Michigan is. It's about an hour's drive from my house. But now that due to COVID, they do so much stuff virtually, I don't have to drive there.
Yeah.
And the people that are in that guild are incredible. I mean, we have people that have been on Alex Anderson's show and stuff that belong to that guild. They're incredibly talented and generous people. So I joined it because I could, and I don't have to drive. And
Well,
then I also belong to another group called we're Bee Stitchers. We did You maybe have never heard of this Brazilian embroidery. You ever heard of
No, I've
Brazilian?
never heard of that.
Um, that's this stuff. I don't know if you can
Oh,
see it.
that's
It's,
hand done, right?
yep, it's Brazilian embroidery, and it's dimensional work like bullions and wrappings and things like that. And it's done with rayon thread. So one of my quilt guild ladies started to sit and showed us how to do it. We became an official group probably 15 years ago.
Oh,
As you can see, one of my projects isn't done yet.
yeah.
It's done, but it's not done. Nothing's been done to it.
Yeah. Well, I imagine that kind of embroidery probably takes quite a while to do.
It
No?
depends on who's doing it, but
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I have a stash of UFOs.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Well, that's all right. Well, geez, with all those groups you belong to, when do you have time to sew? I mean,
I like to stay up nights and sew. That's when I was a dressmaker. That's when I got my work done.
mm,
So now that I'm sort of retired and only have a part-time job, I work for the school district I work for. I now work for the teachers union there, and
mm.
it's strictly part-time, and I can do most of it from home now. So I can stay up at night if I don't have to get up early in the morning for anything. 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I get inspired. That's when I sew. Well,
Well, that's a nice quiet time, I suppose. See, I'm the opposite. I sew in the mornings more or less, and well into the afternoon sometimes too. But after about 2 in the afternoon, I'm done because I get up so early in the morning, and I just want to veg at that point. And if I start to sew or quilt after about 2 o'clock or so, that's when I'm going to make all the mistakes. That
oh, that's when I'm finally waking up.
actually, you saw that yesterday on the craft and chat when I sewed one part of that table runner I was making, 2 pieces of fabric. They were wrong. I sewed them wrong into those ones. So, yep. So, anyways, well, it happens to the best of us, I guess.
It
So, my
does.
next question here is, what's your favorite store or outlet for supplies and materials? Do you strictly go to brick and mortar, or do you do a lot of online shopping, or combination of, or?
Well, there's only one close quilt shop, and that's where I go first. And that's about a 25-minute drive from my house. And I go there for meetings, and they offer support for the software I bought for my embroidery machine, that kind of thing. I go there first. They get my money. Then it goes to Amazon. And I go to Joann's to use my coupons
Right.
and buy thread when it's on sale. So that's my
Yeah.
order.
That's your order. Okay. Now you mentioned buying, this is a little off topic here, but not really. You mentioned buying your software for your embroidery machine. So what did you get? Artistic Digitizer or Hatch?
Oh no, I didn't buy either one of those. I bought originally an MC 11,000 Janome embroidery machine from my friend's mom, which she had the software, the laptop, all the digitizer stuff with it. And about November 2019, it just stopped working in the middle of a project. I had to hem like 30 dresses, and I went to turn it on and nothing happened. So I went to the local sewing store, local, 40 minutes away, and asked him to look at it. And I said, he's pushing the buttons and nothing's working. And I said, well, I bought it from a smoker. Well, don't ever buy a machine like that from somebody that smokes.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, because all the buttons it took me a long time just to clean it and get it to start working. And it works, and then it died. So that's when I went in and bought my Elna, because I needed something to sew with. But so when I bought I have all the original Janome software to do digitizing on an old laptop. It's like this thick.
Okay.
And I got that with it, tons of stuff. But I bought Embellish software, which again, it doesn't seem like anybody uses it. I have that affinity for buying things like that. And it's a division, R&K Distributors. It's from
Oh, yes.
the same division as Quilter Select, and Floriani is the main the host, or the main It's from Floriani.
Yeah.
So it's like instant digitizing, and it makes things really easy to do. I just haven't had a lot of time to play with it this year. I bought the software in February 2020. You know what happened in March?
Yeah.
So all that software they promised, all that support that I was going to get at my local quilt shop didn't happen.
Right.
But when I go in there with it and say, I want to know how to do this, the woman there knows her stuff, and she just shows me, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is easy. So I use that software when I get around to it.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I did invest in Artistic Digitizer, which is for the Janome, which is a very expensive program, about $1,100 Canadian. And I've taken a couple of courses online that were offered by Janome to learn how to use it. But it's one of those things, if you don't use it all the time, you really don't creep up on the learning curve too fast. And that's the way I am. So it's more or less, I use it on a need to know basis, and that, which is not the best way with something like that. But, you know, if I can't buy something, because there's so much out there in terms of patterns and things like for your embroidery machine, I can usually find something, and the cost is usually not that much, and I can download it right, you know, onto my computer, and away I go with it. But if there's something I want to customize for some special reason, then that's usually when I'll go into my software and then try to play around with it to get it to work. Okay, so do you have any favorite experts or sources of information that you turn to? I mean, you're a very experienced sewist, so I have my doubts that you really need a lot of assistance. But in case you did.
The sewing parts, no, but I love to watch YouTube. Oh, you know, my husband and I cut the cord on cable TV over 5 years ago, and he watches his weirdo shows on YouTube in the basement and can tell you anything about history and wars and all that stuff. And I watch YouTube probably almost 24/7. So that's my resource, because then I can see what's out there, and then I can do my own research on how to do it. But generally, when it comes to garment sewing, I look at what they're showing me and go, well, yeah, I know that. I just have to get back to doing it. I haven't done a lot of garment sewing lately. But the embroidery, I watch YouTube, or I go to my quilt shop and ask. And one of my favorite embroidery resources is OML Embroidery. I don't know, do you follow her?
Yes. Yes.
Sue Brown. So I like that. I like to watch people on YouTube that are not out there just to sell me something.
Yes, I agree, because I watch a lot of YouTube as well, and I'm always picking up ideas and things like that. And if there's something I don't know, first place I'll go is to YouTube, because I'm a visual learner. So I want to see it. I'm not, which is kind of ironic because I was an English teacher. So, but I really don't enjoy reading stuff from a screen like that. But, you know, like that's probably the literature part of my background in me. But yeah, YouTube is great. And I use it for inspiration. And sometimes it's information overload too. You know, you go down the rabbit hole of YouTube, one video leads you to another, and before you know it, half of the day is gone by. So same as you, we basically are down to basic cable. And even I don't know why we're even on that, because we don't watch it. We watch Netflix and YouTube. So
Amazon, Netflix, YouTube, and we do have my husband reinstalled the antenna on our house.
Oh yeah.
That was there when we bought this house in it's probably from the 50s, this antenna. So I can get local TV and that kind of stuff. But before we cut the cord, he disconnected the cable for 2 weeks to see how we could tolerate it. And neither one of us missed it.
Yeah, that was a great idea. Yeah, well, we don't miss it either. So, and you know, the thing is too, with YouTube and that, so many of the regular television shows, you know, they may not be right up to date, like the most current episode, but a lot of them they're putting on YouTube now for that kind of thing. So yeah, that's the way of that's the 21st century way of doing things, I guess.
Yes, but I have grandsons that come over and they put the apps that they own on my TV. Oh. And they'll say, Grandma, let's watch whatever. And I go, but I don't have Hulu. Oh yeah, you do. Here, look, I put it on for you. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's true. So do you have do you have someone that's been, you mentioned Mary Fonz, Fonz
Mhm.
and Porter. Is this somebody that would be one of your kind of gurus, if you have a guru?
Now, if I had a guru, I would say it would probably be Alex Anderson
Hmm.
only and Ricky Timms, even though I, I think Ricky Timms isn't technically wise. He's not as good at stuff as Alex Anderson,
Yeah.
but the show that they do, I've been subscribed to the quilt show since they started. Alex Anderson actually had a booth at one of our local shows the year they started it. I've got a picture with her,
Yep.
and I signed up and I've been a subscriber ever since because there's such a library of knowledge there, and
Yep.
I love that. That would be my expertise, is their show and all the people that they've had on it.
I just recently got a subscription to that show and I love it. I absolutely love it. And I agree with you with what you're saying about the two of them, their personalities and what they do. And I think that's what why they complement each other so much
Right.
on there too. But yeah, I love that show. It is so worth the money, and it's not a lot of money.
No,
You know, even when you do the exchange difference in Canadian dollars from American, it's still really well worth it. I wish I had joined it a long time ago because I've learned so much so far. So,
what I do is I'll take my laptop and my cable, and when we go on a retreat, I'll plug it in my laptop into the TV, and we just watch whatever shows anybody wants to learn about. There it is.
yeah, that's a good idea. What I do is I go onto the website and find the latest shows, and then I've been working in their back catalog as well. But of course, they put them up onto YouTube, which is a private one, just not anybody can get into that. But I put them into my watch later list. In fact, I have a whole
Oh,
playlist of the quilt show, and when I want to watch something like that, I'll have that onto my big screen TV set. So, I get all the fine details in that. I don't like watching TV so much off of a computer screen. I prefer it on the bigger one, but
well, that's why when you see me, a lot of times I've got my laptop plugged into my television,
yeah.
and I just watch it on that. And
Yeah,
I
that's what I
follow.
was sort of doing yesterday too, when I was
Yes.
trying to figure out things.
Did you
with that.
figure out why you were blurry?
Yeah, I figured out that my cameras just can't handle that distance. Their focal length isn't for that. But I did some rearranging today, and maybe for the next craft and chat rent it lips, it'll be a little bit better. It's still not the way I ideally would like it. I'm still working on it. It's a work in progress. So that takes me to, do you have any challenges or goals for the future in terms of projects you want to do?
Yes, I want to learn to use my embroidery machine more and get the nerve to quilt a quilt on it.
Good luck.
Thanks.
I've tried it. It can be done sort of, but I have come to the conclusion that if you're doing anything that is no larger than a baby quilt, you can probably make it work. I know there's a few people out there who swear by it, that they can do a queen size quilt. I have done a queen size quilt on it. I'll never do it again. It took me more time to do that than it would have taken me to do it if I had done it on a domestic machine. And given the fact that I am not a free motion quilter yet, I mean, I'm getting better, but you might have better luck with it. It's the lining it up. That is the biggest thing I found. But there are things out there. If you check YouTube, there are people who will show you. The only thing that drives me mental about that is they show you on a little square. I want to see somebody do it on a full size, queen size quilt from beginning to end. That's what I want to see.
Well, designs and machine embroidery. Eileen Roach does that, but she has that lovely contraption, the weightless quilter.
Yeah.
The hooks thing.
Yep.
Which actually I've tried to get my husband to let me put holes in the ceiling and hooks and chains, because it would do the same thing.
Yep.
He didn't jump on that very well, but I'm still trying to figure it out. But
I did that.
Weightless, you did that?
I did that, and I think I have a video somewhere back in my back catalog of the Idiot Quilter. But I was in that was when my sewing room was in the other room, which was unfinished. So I had open beams and it was easy to hook it in. But that did work. That did work.
Yeah.
The other thing that they sell as well, this is way off topic now, but is they sell that magnetic hoop, and I have one of those. And she makes it look like it's so easy to quilt on your embroidery machine using this magnetic hoop. It is not. Those magnets are not strong. They
No.
she swears that you'll get your finger pinched through it in the whole bit, and no, 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 no.
But you can't use it for the Janome, can you? Or
Yes, they have one for the Janome.
not the,
Actually, for the Janome 550E,
yeah, the
that's what I
smaller
have.
one.
I got
Yeah.
rid of my 15,000.
Do you
So
miss it?
nope, I hated that machine. I
I know you
loved it.
hated it. I know, but what's the difference between that one and the one you
550.
have now? Yeah.
550 is the basic difference is this. The 550 is a dedicated embroidery machine. It does
Right.
not sew. The other one did both, and that's where the problem came. It came with the timing. Your timing, if it went out on the embroidery part, then you get that fixed, and the timing on the sewing part was out. If your timing went out in the sewing part and they fixed that, then it went out on the embroidery. There never seemed to be an equal balance, and that's what led to all kinds of other future problems, which I'm not going to get into because it even
Right.
still makes me mad, because that's not a cheap machine, and it was my
No.
dream machine. And
No.
so I finally gave it up, and I traded it in for an M7 Continental Janome as my main sewing machine, and for the 550E. And I love the 550E. And also, you don't have that problem with the space in behind because it goes on the side. The
So, so what kind of hoops does it take? Does it take all the big hoops too?
Yep,
Oh.
it has big hoops too with it. So yeah, and so they have the magnetic hoop that works on the 550E. But as I said, when it comes to doing a quilt or something like that with that hoop, I am not impressed with it. But enough about that, because I could go on for days about that kind of thing. And that's not what this is. This is all about you. So, so you have your challenges. So let's talk about being an artist, because in my mind, anybody who's a quilter, anybody who is a dressmaker, a sewist, it is an art form, and they are truly an artist. And I know there are those artist snobs, the ones who believe the only kind of art is the kind of art that hangs on a wall. It's been done in oils or in watercolor, and it's got, you've sold it for millions of dollars. Well, I beg to differ on that one. So what kind of artist would you describe yourself as? And I'm thinking here, techniques, expression.
I always see myself more as a craftsman than even a sewist or an artist, because you can be an artist, but to actually have a technique and be good at what you do, your craft, whether it's painting or sewing, that takes talent. And to be a craftsman is truly something that I think people are now realizing more and more, the value in that. My husband's was a builder. He did remodeling and stuff, and people treat his work that he does, he sees it as a craft. You take pride in what you do, whether it's hanging on a wall in a museum or not. The enjoyment you get out of what you do is what's important.
Yeah, and I think too, it is talent for sure, but I also think it's practice. I think the more, like you said, a craftsman. Well, a craftsman is usually a craftsperson. We should say craftsperson. It says is because they have had a lot of experience, and they have built on that experience. They've learned from their mistakes, and they just keep working at it until they perfect it. And yeah, I think, yeah, over the number of years that you've been dressmaking and quilting, yeah, I would pretty much say that's a good description of you. I think so. Yeah. So my last question for you is that anybody who wanted to get into dressmaking or quilt making or just into sewing in general, what would be the advice you would give them if they're just starting out?
My first advice would be invest in good tools. There's nothing more discouraging when you're trying to teach somebody to sew and they've got this crappy sewing machine. And I've said this since I was in college. If you have to fight with what you're working with, you're not going to go forward.
Right.
So you spend money on the most you can afford at the time. Tools, I think, are the most important thing, because if you've got the drive and the initiative to learn something and you've got the right tools, you're going to figure it out, or you're going to be productive and enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah, I think you're very right about that as well. So this has been great. A lot of valuable information in this interview, and that's what I'm all about, is getting things out there. And I like highlighting people who are not people who we've all heard about, because, well, as you said, sometimes you go to YouTube and someone's trying to sell you something. And
Always.
I'm not selling anything here, and neither are you. We're just exploring, the diversity in the sewing arts community through this. So do you have any parting words before I thank you and say goodbye?
I just want to thank you for your channel and all that you do, because I know it's a lot of work to do a YouTube channel and to put content out there. And I enjoy your reviews. Love your reviews of the YouTube sites and the tools that you use. And it's inspiring and informational for me. And I appreciate all that you do for us.
Well, I thank you for that. For me,
and I love your mom stories.
Oh, I wonder about that. But yeah, well, I do it because I love doing it. It's part of my hobbies, or one of my hobbies, kind of a thing with it. So, okay, well, Sheryl, thank you so much for this interview. It was great. And just stay on the line here as I stop the recording for a few minutes. But again, thank you for taking the time to do this. I very much appreciate it.
You're welcome, Stephen.